Hi everyone, I am Lauren, and today I'm here to talk about my DNFs of 2020. So I don't like to talk about my DNFs in my wrap-ups just because they're already so long, and I am very harsh about DNFing books, I suppose. If I'm not liking a book for really any reason, I'll DNF it instantly, pretty much. I make exceptions here and there. Like, I won't drop a book if I'm just reading the prologue, because the prologue tends to be really different than the rest of the book anyway, in fantasy books at least. But for the most part, not liking it, I'm dropping it. I don't have time for books that I don't enjoy. I'm not doing this as a job, only a hobby, so I do what I want. I have finally accrued enough DNFs that I wanted to talk to you about them in this video. I don't know how long or short this video will be. It might be really short because oftentimes I DNF very early, so, I don't really have much to say about them. But, we'll just see how this goes, and yeah. There's not really, I don't think there's too much of an order to these, so we'll just start with whatever's on the top of my list and just go from there. The first one I have here is Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman. I don't know, this is just weird. It's really sciencey, but this is one of those type of books where you're supposed to look kind of deeper in the meanings of things, I guess. But at the same time, it's waffling around, and it's like a lot of short stories, essentially, with various sciencey concepts, I think. It's been a while since I tried to read this. Concepts like multiple dimensions and that kind of thing. And that would potentially be cool, but this kind of waffles a lot, and it takes a long time to get to its point for any of the stories. And it's not interestingly written either, so it's just not interesting to read. Throughout this book, I kept on thinking of, get on with it, from Monty Python. I just couldn't get that out of my head when I was reading this, so I was like, this is probably a sign that I shouldn't be reading this anymore. So I dropped it. I don't know how far in. It's not a very long book, but I couldn't stand it at all. Oh, I guess I should say, before I forget, I'm not saying any of these books are bad, necessarily. I don't think any of these books are bad. I just have certain tastes. I don't like certain books. If you like them, that's cool. The next book I have on here is The Book Wanderers by Anna James. This is a middle grade book. I think it's a pretty new release. I just randomly got from the library. And it's something with this girl in the library and these characters from the stories she reads come to life. But the main character is really annoying. I don't like her, and I felt like I gave it a pretty good chunk of reading, but just not really much was happening other than these characters coming to life, and the girl was talking to them, the main character girl was talking to them, and it's just she's talking to them, and this is the plot. I think there's more plot than that, but it's just I don't like this girl at all. She's dumb, and I hate her. I have a thing with kid characters that it's really hard for me to like them, and she did not do it for me. So yeah, I DNF'd it pretty quick. The next one actually was a reread, and I sure do not like it anymore, and that is The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger? Audrey Niffenegger. I'm sorry, names are really tough for me. I tried. I don't remember the experience of me reading it, but I did finish it. Apparently I really liked it because I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. But when I read it again recently, January or something like that, this is, I sort of remember the plot. It's about this guy, he'll randomly time travel, and his wife, obviously, as you can tell by the title, and it's a romance, and they have sex, 10 pages in or whatever. There's just some slightly problematic things, I guess, in here is part of my problem with it. Okay, so part of my problem is that it's heavily romance. It's not really so much the fantasy sci-fi-ness of the time travel. I don't know whether you call that fantasy or not, but whatever. The other thing I have a big problem with is that the woman who marries this guy, she first meets him as, when she's a kid, and she meets him as, like, a grown adult. Like, I don't know if it was 30s or 40s or whatever, but he's a grown guy. They talk to each other randomly throughout her life. I guess she falls in love with him through that, but it's just like this random guy in the woods shows up, basically, and she falls in love with him, and that's like a little bit weird to me. I don't know, just, it feels weird. And I don't like romance to begin with, so it was just like, nah, no. And just reading other people's reviews, I was like, no, I don't want to continue with this at all, so yeah, I don't like it anymore. I do remember a lot of what happens, so I do know that I finished it and read it, but I have no idea what I liked about it, and I certainly don't like it now. Next one on my list, another reread that I DNF'd, and that is Mr. Monday by Garth Nix. This is kind of sad for me, because I do really like Garth Nix's Abhorsen series, and I remember really liking the series that this is in. Keys to the Kingdom, I think it is in. This is Mr. Monday is the first book in that series. But my problem with this is that it just feels very generic-y. It starts off really nice with like, ooh, look at all this promising fantasy world stuff. And then you like meet the main character, and he just kind of goes through the motions of a middle grade-y, young YAE type story. And it's just like, don't like the main character at all. He's kind of a wimp. Well, he's not even a wimp, really. He's more just like a blank slate kind of character. And I'm just like, I don't really care for those in books. And I was just like, yeah, I remember a lot of what happens in here in this one, and I've read the second and third one, I think, before, and I remember a lot of what happened in those, and none of it seemed particularly exciting. So yeah, I just, it's like, no, I don't need to go through a generic-y feeling book just because I really liked it before. So I dropped it then. Okay, the next one is unfortunately going to ruffle a few feathers. I did not grow up with this, however, so keep that in mind. I know a lot of people did. And that is The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in a series, something, I don't know what it's called. But it's a very Greek or Roman, I don't know which, I always mix them up, inspired middle grade story. And this is one that I DNF pretty quick. And again, like I mentioned with Book Wanderers, I have a very hard time dealing with kid characters. And this really bothered me too. The main character in here, I forgot his name. Percy, that's his name. Percy Jackson series, that's what it's called. Percy is so annoying. I hate him so much. And I hate his friend. I don't know what his name is either. But I don't like either of them. Percy is this kind of troublemaking kid who like always gets in trouble with a teacher and he's doing things. And I'm like, oh, I hate this kid so much. I mean, it's cool that it's mythology themed, but the theme is not what gets me into a book. If I don't like the main character, it's going to be hard for me to get it. And there wasn't really anything else that was pulling me in. I was kind of like, I don't want to read this, so I'm not reading this anymore. I'm sorry if you really like the series, but like I said, it's different tastes. You're cool if you like this. I can't stand it, unfortunately. Next one, another kind of reread, Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Wilder. It's just kind of a middle grade historical fiction. I don't know what time period, but they're in a cabin in the woods, which I think is the name of the series. I don't know. It was just kind of felt too young to me. Just kind of, not baby talk, but that's the word I would use to describe it. It just was a little too young sounding. I have enjoyed some kids' books, and I tend to enjoy them when they don't have this kind of really young sounding language. Like, they might use simpler words, but they're not worded like for little babies, and this is kind of how I feel like it's worded, and I don't enjoy it at all. It's too much for me. I don't remember if I really like this or not. I just remember I read it, so no hard feelings past me. I can't stand it now, so yeah. Next one is The Capture by Catherine Lasky. This wasn't really a hard DNF. It was just like, it's a fantasy with owls, and I remember really liking it. I don't think I read more than the first book in the series, but they have this society with all these owls and things. And I remember a little bit what happens in the first book, but again, it's just like, okay, that doesn't really interest me, and what's happening now isn't really interesting me either. So, yeah, I just didn't feel like continuing with it. Wasn't a strong dislike, just there wasn't anything grabbing me either, so just DNF it. This is one that I'm definitely really sad about DNFing because I enjoyed a good chunk of what I read, but it just got a little bit too slow, I guess, for me, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is like an adult historical fiction-y fantasy type story with mostly, as far as I got, it was Mr. Norrell as he's trying to get in to this wizard society in London. I think it's London. And I really like him and how he's not very good with society, and just the hilarity that ensues with him trying to navigate through society and all that, and everybody else thinking that he's being funny. I guess that's kind of funny to me. But the parts that are really rough for me are the parts where we're not with Mr. Norrell, when we're with these random characters that I don't like that much, and they don't bring as much this humor as Norrell does, and there isn't much of a plot either, so I can't have that tide me over until I can get to Norrell. I haven't even gotten to a major part with Strange, so I don't know even what his part in the story is. I felt like I got, I think, like a quarter of the way through or something like that. And it's a big chunker, and I don't feel like trudging through a large portion of this book without Mr. Norrell and trying to skim stuff. It's just too much work. So this one's a pretty... I wish I could read this, but it makes me sad to DNF. I don't know, I'm just like, I think I would like it more if it was trimmed down a bit. Maybe that wouldn't work, because maybe there's some intricate underlying storyline that I'm just not getting. But it just doesn't work for me, and yeah, makes me kind of sad. Next one is a weird one for me, and that is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's kind of interesting. It has advice for war, and I think some people use this today in more corporate situations, and I think in military as well. I don't know, just kind of interesting, and it's this cool bind-up. But it has this poetic structure, and I don't really care for it. It's one of those things I'd much rather have the information in a simple-to-read and concise manner, and this is definitely not what you get here. You get more poetic readings. And if you like that, then you're gonna like this probably, but I don't like to work for my non-fiction-y-esque information. Next one I want to mention is Ode to Kirihito by Osamu Tezuka. It's just boring and slow, not really well drawn either. It's very inconsistent. Characters will look different from one panel to another on the same page, and it's just, ugh. Also, there's rape in here that is just not processed at all. Lady gets raped, and just the next day it's totally fine, I guess. I was just like, what? No. And it happens a few other times, and I'm like, no. So, no. I skimmed it, so I do know how it ends, and I think it's dumb anyway, so I'm just like, nope. Sorry, Kisuke. Next one, I didn't really get that far in, but I tried to read Too Much, How Victorian Constraints Still Bind Women Today by Rachel Verona Coate. This was an interesting sounding nonfiction, but oh boy, it's not very good at telling the point. It just kind of looks at like literature and stuff, and it just, look at all these ways that women were treated poorly, and now they are, well, it didn't even really relate them to present day. It was just kind of looking at Victorian and not really explaining itself very well. And it had this really nasty undertone to it, which I see sometimes when people talk like feminism type thing. Like, I'm totally fine with more blunt wordage, but this kind of was leaning a bit too close to like the men are evil type tonage, and I was like, didn't really like that too much. And the other thing was that the author kept on using these big fancy words, and it just felt like she was using big fancy words just to sound smart, and I was just like, no, this is dumb. No. So yeah, I did not read very far into it. As much as I was excited to see how it was, it didn't really work out. Next one is Go by Kisuke Kaneshiro. This one I DNF'd in like 3 or 4 pages because, yeah, it's a romance. I didn't know that it was a romance. And the writing style was cringy as heck. It's a very casual narrator type thing. And one thing that really, really, really turned me off, and that kind of made me DNF there, was the narrator who is telling her story kind of thing. Was like, so I just need to get this tedious thing out of the way, and then proceeds to explain tedious thing that wasn't very interesting. And it's just like, why would you explain this tedious thing if it's not interesting? Like, why? This is like when video games do the thing where they go, haha, aren't fetch quests really boring? Here's a fetch quest. You have to do it. It's like, no, you don't do that. In this case, it's meaningless if you just explain tedious thing, even though you go, hey, isn't this tedious? It's like, no, it's just dumb. It's really dumb. At least I got it for free. Another quick one, I Will Judge You by Your Bookshelf by Grant Snyder. A comic about books and reading, and I just picked it up on a whim, and it just felt kind of generic, like the same old where you put your books and different reading tastes and where you read books. It just felt like the same old type content that I've seen in a bunch of other comics about books, so it wasn't very interesting. Another one that I read as a kid and just doesn't work so well for me now, and I think I may have skimmed as a kid, and that is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. This is a bind-up of the 3 books in the series, but so I'm just holding this all up. It's mostly the writing style that gets to me, and I just don't enjoy it. I really don't enjoy the main character. She's a punk, and I hate her so much. It's so hard to explain, but the story is just not presented very interestingly, and I just don't want to continue with it. I really don't. I also didn't remember some parts of this. I remember the opening scene when I read it, and I didn't remember a bunch after that. So I think I skimmed it when I read it anyway, because I tend to remember most scenes in books that I've read before, like while I'm reading it. Like if you ask me with just randomly, like, oh, do you remember this scene and that scene? Like maybe I wouldn't remember it, but while I'm rereading, I tend to go, oh yeah, I remember this, and I remember that, and I still remember this, but I just might miss a few details and stuff like that. This was just like, I remember the opening scene pretty well when I was reading it. After that, I was like, what's going on? I don't remember any of this. So I think I skimmed it. And I don't feel like skimming a book to get through it. So yeah, I'm not interested in reading this anymore. The last one I have on here is Bring Me Their Hearts by Sarah Wolfe. Interesting idea about these creatures that are heartless. The main character is one of these and has to go steal the prince's heart to prevent a war. But ooh, the writing is just really, really casual, and the main character is a big old jerk and tries to be snarky funny, but she's not 90% of the time. So it's just like, no, cringy, 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 no, 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 no. I could stand it a little bit because it wasn't so bad, and then it just kind of got worse and worse and worse and worse as I went on. So I was like, no, I am not reading this. No, 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 no. Anyway, that's all the books that I've DNF'd so far in 2020. Again, if you like any of these, that's fine, but I just have different tastes. We all have different tastes, and that's how it goes. But let me know if there has been something recently you've DNF'd, or do you DNF books, or do you just always trudge through them anyway, even if you're not liking them? I would like to know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video. Bye!